So you see that we're not just tapping into these networks and just trying to acquire users, but also learning what these users really want. So it's a beautiful process. And if you use these 3 C's, you can then follow the 4 stages of the growth hacking process, which is research, ideation, execution, and analytics. So you can use those 4 stages, and these 3 C's feed beautifully into that process to actually help you develop and come up with great growth hacking ideas. Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to share the 3 C's framework that I follow to generate new ideas for growth hacking campaigns. Now, growth hacking is all about tapping into other people's networks. So you want to find creative ways of using the popular channels or not so creative ways of using the offbeat channels. And I'll explain this in a bit. So when you look at popular channels, let's say social media or SEO, they are already very saturated. However, most of the people use very conventional methods to tap into the audiences on these channels. So how can you stand out as a growth hacker and be able to tap into those audiences faster and in a cheaper way using less resources? Because that's the mindset of a growth hacker, is by using creative hacks or creative ways to tap into these channels. But on the other hand, if you look at the channels which are not so popular, which are not so saturated, you can actually just tap into those channels by just developing a standard SOP for getting to that audience on those channels. Since they are not so saturated, there's not a lot of competition, and hence you don't need to be that creative on those channels, even though creative hacks always help. So this sort of removes some of the misconceptions around growth hacking, where people think you always need to go extremely creative with your hacks, or you always need to look for offbeat and new channels. So both of those misconceptions are false. So you can target any of those channels. That brings me to the 3 C's framework. So the 3 C's stand for channels, competitors, and communities. Okay. And these are the 3 places where you can design OPN hacks or other people network hacks. So if you're looking at promoting your business or whatever metric you have, if you're looking at acquiring customers or referral campaigns or retention campaigns, whichever stage of the funnel you're at, and by the way, do check out the video on the A3R3 funnel so you understand the 6 stages of the funnel and the user journey of growth hacking. So whichever stage of the funnel you're at, you can look at the channels that your target audience is active on. And that's the first C of the 3 C framework. So look at all the channels, make a list of all the channels, whether online or offline. Make a list of all those channels where your target audience is active. And those are places where you can execute growth hacks, where you can come up with ideas and execute creative experiments. That's the first C. The second C is competitors, right? So look at all your competitors, your competition, and see how are they getting to their audience, or what kind of growth hacks or what kind of experiments are they executing on their website, on their app, on their social media. What are they doing? What are the channels that they are getting users from? So a simple hack I can give you is when you fill up a form in one of your competitors' website, just fill up a form and see, you'll have a field where they say, how did you hear about us, right? Especially if it's a SaaS, you'll have a field where they'll say, how did you hear about us? And those are the channels where they are getting their audience from, right? And those are the places where you can run creative experiments on. You can also see built with or a similar tool to see what kind of technologies are they using to build out their website or their product, which will also give you some idea of what kind of channels their audience are coming from, because these tools will also cover their social media reach and so forth. You can also look at competitor analysis tools. SimilarWeb is a good one if you're starting out. You can also go deep with SEMrush, for example, if you're looking at what kind of keywords they are targeting. But essentially, just try to trace back the traffic that is coming to these people. You can also go to their landing pages and look at the UTM links that they are using. And within the UTM links, you'll be able to understand what kind of campaigns they are running, what kind of keywords are there in the UTM links, and the referral names that are there in the UTM links. And those kinds of things will also give you some insight about what they're doing. Of course, follow them on social media by all means. Look at their comments. Twitter responses is another one. So if you go to the tweets and replies tab, you can actually see what people are saying about their business. Beautiful ways of actually getting more insight about your competitors. While these are the most basic ways, they still work for most of the people. Then you have the third C, which is communities, right? So what are the communities that your target audience is part of? You're not talking about your competitors anymore, but your end user, whoever you're working with. If you're B2B, what is that profile of the decision maker? And where are they active, right? Also, if you're B2C, what is your consumer persona? And then see what kind of groups they are part of. What kind of Slack channels do they hang out on? What kind of, if they're using Telegram or WhatsApp, what kind of groups would they typically be active on? If they are interacting on Reddit or Quora, you will know that what kind of threads do they follow. So that's the third one. And then you can ideate experiments on these communities to acquire these users from those communities back into your funnel. So these are the 3 C's. And if you start with these 3 C's, you'll be able to generate hundreds of growth hacking ideas just from these list of channels, competitors, and communities, and just seeing how they do things. You can also see how this community on Reddit, for example, where your target audience is active on, how do they engage with them? What kind of language do they use? How do they acquire more people in the community? Because you also need to acquire the same audience. Even though you're not direct competitors with that community, you still need to know their language. You still need to know how they get these people in the community. So you can use that method to get the people into your funnel. So you see that we're not just tapping into these networks and just trying to acquire users, but also learning what these users really want. So it's a beautiful process. And if you use these 3 C's, you can then follow the 4 stages of the growth hacking process, which I'll make a separate video on, which is research, ideation, execution, and analytics. So you can use those 4 stages, and these 3 C's feed beautifully into that process to actually help you develop and come up with great growth hacking ideas. And since it's already worked for these channels, for these competitors, for these communities, it's probably also going to work for you. And that's the beautiful thing about growth hacking, is that you can already design experiments which you have a higher confidence on, which is highly scalable, and things that you have more, basically which you have more past data on from these different channels. And this is why I use the 3 C's framework first. And when I've run out of all of these 3 C's is when I, start having brainstorming sessions with people to come up with new ideas and so forth. So the most success I found in growth hacking experiments usually come from the ideas that have originated from these 3 C's. So go ahead and use the 3 C's framework for your growth hacking experiments. In case of any questions, let me know in the comments and I'll try to help you out as much as I can. Watch my other videos on growth hacking to learn more and execute those experiments for your startup or business. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.